I have recorded 20 phone calls today. 20. That is unacceptable. And I'm going to report this to the government website.
Patience is running thin across the tri-state over unwanted calls. The Federal Trade Commission logged 4 million complaints last year about them. Well, before you start lashing out and leaving voicemails like that, we want to show you what's really happening and how you can stop it. It's my special report, Ghost Call Buster. In Dennis Smith's corner of Oakland City, neighbors enjoy their privacy, and they don't take too kindly to outsiders. But lately, outsiders have shaken Smith's sense of security.
Well, I'm very careful about what I say to certain people. I don't say anything more than I want them to know.
Lately, his phone's been ringing a dozen times a day or more. But when he answers, no one's there. And if he calls the number back,
the phone line does not answer. Or it says, the number you have called is not available right now.
But what some of these people are doing is spoofing where it's coming from. So it appears that, you're calling me or whatever, but that's not really what's happening. Hey, guys.
Desktop Doctor's Alex Huber says the problem is computers, not humans, making these repetitive calls. And they can make hundreds of calls a minute. The other problem is many are originating outside the U.S., which makes them even more difficult to prosecute. Whoever's behind them would love to collect useful information about you to potentially steal from you. And they know there's a greater chance that you'll pick up if the number on your caller ID closely resembles your own. It works. That's actually how I met Dennis Smith. I got a call from his phone number during the news one day, and on a whim, I called it back.
So,
and did you call me?
No, I did not.
Dennis's trouble with telemarketers and robocalls is temporarily over. That's because a kitchen accident destroyed his phone.
Yeah, on fire.
Yeah,
it melted all over the place. It took a while to get that stuff off the stove.
But you can cut down on these kinds of calls without toasting your iPhone. Experts say first, hang up as soon as you realize it's a junk call. Don't press 1 to be taken off their list because that just confirms it's a working number. And don't do like I did and call numbers back. Huber says there's a risk that domestic number could be rerouted to a 1-900 or an out-of-country phone number, and then you may be on the hook for those charges. And if you do happen to reach someone, they aren't going to be the ones who called you in the first place. The most important piece of advice, he says, is to get an anti-spam app like Call Protect or something similar, which picks up on spam trends and blocks calls predicted to be from robocallers. Finally, experts say, stop picking up phone calls from numbers you don't recognize. If it's that important, experts say, they'll leave a message. And that's what Dennis says he plans to do when his new phone comes.
Because I have a real hard time right now trusting people.
And speaking of apps, not all spoofing is done off shores. There are heaps of apps that people can use to spoof calls one at a time. Since we started this conversation, lots of you have called in with your stories about being spoofed, of hearing that someone you love is in trouble or hurt or in need of money, and you believe it all because you believe what's on your caller ID. Others said they've had death threats from people on the receiving end of relentless phone calls from your numbers, calls that you never placed, and that is such a problem. This is part of the video. There's a cell phone underneath that lower third that you can't see. By the way, Vanderbilt County Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement agencies are now using social media to educate people about it, and in an effort to protect people who may not realize what's happening until it's too late. A good rule of thumb: before you act, hang up. And if your caller ID just displayed the name of somebody you know, then call that person back to verify whether there's even a real emergency or whether they're even trying to reach you before you think about panicking. Randy?
All right, Jackie, very good. Thanks.